It is a great pleasure for me and a profound honor to welcome you all to the Arctic Circle China Forum. This gathering by itself is an historic event because never before in the long history of China has such an assembly of representatives from more than 30 countries and distinguished leaders of many Chinese institutions come together to discuss and deliberate the future of the Arctic and the role of China in this very important part of our world. We are especially pleased that over 500 participants from more than 30 countries are gathering in this great historic building where international meetings have taken place and where President Obama addressed the youth of China on his visit to this great city as President of the United States. And it is also symbolic that the Science and Technology Museum of Shanghai should be the venue for our discussions, because indeed the scientific cooperation and the technological progress need to be the guiding light as we move forward in the Arctic. The program we have created for these 2 days in cooperation with our Chinese host takes into consideration almost every important level on the future of the Arctic. It gives us an opportunity to understand better the new and comprehensive plan created by President Xi Jinping and giving an Arctic relevance in the policy paper issued by China in the beginning of last year, the Polar Silk Road. We will, in addition, be able to examine many other energy, investment, and financial aspects of the Arctic, as well as having profound discussions on scientific cooperation, climate change, and how the future of China will be determined by what happens to the Arctic in the coming decades, and what happens in the Arctic will be determined by the future of China. Often, as I speak in different parts of the world, I am asked, why is China so interested in the Arctic? The answer is, in fact, very simple. The aggressive melting of the Arctic sea ice, which has been taking place with increasing pace in recent years, causes extreme weather patterns and fundamental destructions in China only a few months later. The melting of the Greenland ice sheet, which also has been happening faster than any scientific institution predicted in recent years, will rise sea levels all over the world, and if only a quarter of the Greenland ice sheet melt, it will lead to 2 meters rise in sea level everywhere, making the great cities on the coast of China uninhabitable. And as I said to the distinguished Vice Mayor of Shanghai, who is with us here this morning, the security of Shanghai in the future will be determined in the Arctic. But there are also great consequences for the Arctic from the energy system that will be employed in China and other parts of Asia, as well as Europe and Americas throughout this century. That is why the session of what we call Breathing Cities is a part of the dialogue at the China Arctic Circle Forum, because without a fundamental energy transformation in China and everywhere else in the world, The ice in the Arctic, the sea ice and the glaciers will continue to melt with disastrous consequences to the global climate. This is indeed a connected circle where the future of China and Asia and the future of the Arctic are interlinked as never before. So if it was only for the interest of those of us who live in Arctic states, the Forum on China in the Arctic is a high priority for us. But it also signals to the rest of the world how willingly China has entered the constructive cooperation and dialogue in the Arctic. And I want to take this opportunity to thank the Ministry of Natural Resources, to thank the State Ocean Administration, to thank the Polar Research Institute of China, to thank the Shanghai Institute for International Studies, to thank the China Oceanic Development Foundation and the Science and Technology Commission of this great city, as well as the political leaders of Shanghai, for having invited us and helped us to prepare, together with the Chinese Society for Oceanography, this splendid forum. This is indeed the 9th forum which the Arctic Circle brings together in other parts of the world. Previous forums have been in Washington, in Canada, in Singapore, in Greenland, in Scotland, on the Faroe Islands, and other places. And last December, we were honored by the Foreign Ministry of Korea to host a forum in Korea on the Asian involvement in the Arctic. And we are already in the preparatory dialogue to link an Arctic Circle forum in Japan next year with the Arctic Science Ministerial meeting that my own country, Iceland, and Japan will co-sponsor in the second half of next year. I think it is a telling significance that these leading Asian countries, China, Japan, and Korea, have come together within the framework of the Arctic Circle to demonstrate to the rest of the world their scientific contribution, their diplomatic and political engagement, their economic as well as energy plans, and allowing the rest of us to enter into a constructive dialogue with so many different constituencies of these important Asian countries. But let me also here at the opening of the forum draw your attention to the important democratic fact that this forum is organized by inviting different institutions and agencies outside of China to issue proposals for breakout sessions and other discussions and dialogue at this forum. I think it is an important part of how we in an open democratic way can move forward on this issue, that we have planned these forums and created it not just through a dialogue between the Chinese host and the Arctic Circle leadership, but through cooperation with many of you who are representing here today many different institutions and agencies and governments and universities and associations from Europe, North America, and other parts of the world. The agenda, the program of this forum is therefore genuinely democratically created in this cooperative effort. It's not something brought about by a decision at the top leadership. What we will engage in is a product of a dynamic, productive, constructive international coalition, which is moving forward under the auspices of the Arctic Circle in a way that none of us could have imagined when we established the Arctic Circle in 2013. And in the light of recent events in relation to the Arctic Council ministerial meeting in Helsinki, let me also say here this morning that the strength of such an open and constructive dialogue under a platform like the Arctic Circle and others in the Arctic have now become even more important as constructive pillars in how we move forward to make the Arctic not only a safe part of the world, but also help us all to save the planet by securing a stable future for the Arctic. And with those words, I reiterate my thanks to the representatives of the Chinese government, to the representatives of this great city, to the many different Chinese institutions that have helped us to bring this together, but above all, to thank all of you who have traveled to Shanghai to be a part of an historic gathering. Because this is indeed an historic moment, both in the long history of China and in the future of the Arctic. Thank you.